New Zealand is one of the last major landmasses settled by humans. Radiocarbon dating. Evidence of deforestation, 28, and mitochondrial DNA variability within Maori populations, 29, suggest that Eastern Polynesians first settled the New Zealand archipelago between 1250 and 1300, 22, 30. Although newer archaeological and genetic research points to a date no earlier than about 1280. With at least the main settlement period between about 1320 and 1350, 31, 32, consistent with evidence based on genealogical traditions, 33, 34. This represented a culmination in a long series of voyages through the Pacific Islands, 35, over the centuries that followed. The Polynesian settlers developed a distinct culture now known as Maori. The population formed different iwi tribes, and hapu subtribes, which would sometimes cooperate, sometimes compete and sometimes fight against each other. 36. At some point, a group of Maori migrated to Rikohu, now known as the Chatham Islands, where they developed their distinct Moriori culture. 37, 38. The Moriori population was all but wiped out between 1835 and 1862. Largely because of Taranaki Maori invasion and enslavement in the 1830s, although European diseases also contributed. In 1862, only 101 survived, and the last known full-blooded Moriori died in 1933. New Zealand is a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy, 74, although its constitution is not codified. 75. Elizabeth II is the Queen of New Zealand, 76, and thus the head of state. 77. The Queen is represented by the Governor-General, whom she appoints on the advice of the Prime Minister. 78. The Governor-General can exercise the Crown's prerogative powers, such as reviewing cases of injustice and making appointments of ministers, ambassadors, and other key public officials. 79. And in rare situations, the reserve powers, e.g., the power to dissolve Parliament or refuse the royal assent of a bill into law. 80. The powers of the monarch and the Governor-General are limited by constitutional constraints, and they cannot normally be exercised without the advice of ministers. 80. The New Zealand Parliament holds legislative power and consists of the Queen and the House of Representatives. 81. It also included an upper house, the Legislative Council, until this was abolished in 1950. 81. The supremacy of Parliament over the Crown and other government institutions was established in England by the Bill of Rights 1689 and has been ratified as law in New Zealand. 81. The House of Representatives is democratically elected, and a government is formed from the party or coalition with the majority of seats. If no majority is formed, a minority government can be formed if support from other parties during confidence and supply votes is assured. 81. The Governor-General appoints ministers under advice from the Prime Minister, who is by convention the parliamentary leader of the governing party or coalition. 82. Cabinet, formed by ministers and led by the Prime Minister, is the highest policy-making body in government and responsible for deciding significant government actions. 83. Members of Cabinet make major decisions collectively and are therefore collectively responsible for the consequences of these decisions. 8. The early European settlers divided New Zealand into provinces, which had a degree of autonomy. 131. Because of financial pressures and the desire to consolidate railways, education, land sales, and other policies, government was centralized and the provinces were abolished in 1876. 132. The provinces are remembered in regional public holidays, 133, and sporting rivalries, 134, since 1876. Various councils have administered local areas under legislation determined by the central government, 131, 135, in 1989. The government reorganized local government into the current two-tier structure of regional councils and territorial authorities, 136, the 249 municipalities, 136, that existed in 1975 have now been consolidated into 67 territorial authorities and 11 regional councils, 137. The regional council's role is to regulate the natural environment with particular emphasis on resource management, 136. While territorial authorities are responsible for sewage, water, local roads, building consents, and other local matters, 138, 139. 5 of the territorial councils are unitary authorities and also act as regional councils, 139. The territorial authorities consist of 13 city councils, 53 district councils, and the Chatham Islands Council. While officially the Chatham Islands Council is not a unitary authority, it undertakes many functions of a regional council. 140, the realm of New Zealand. One of 16 Commonwealth realms, 141, is the entire area over which the Queen of New Zealand is sovereign and comprises New Zealand, Tokelau, the Ross Dependency, the Cook Islands, and Niue. 74. The Cook Islands and Niue are self-governing states in free association with New Zealand. 142, 143. The New Zealand Parliament cannot pass legislation for these countries, but with their consent can act on behalf of them in foreign affairs and defence. Tokelau is classified as a non-self-governing territory, but is administered by a council of 3 elders, one from each Tokelauan atoll. 144. The Ross Dependency is New Zealand's territorial claim in Antarctica, where it operates the Scott Base Research Facility. 145. New Zealand nationality law treats all parts of the realm equally, so most people born in New Zealand, the Cook Islands, Niue, Tokelau, and the Ross Dependency are New Zealand citizens. New Zealand is located near the center of the water hemisphere and is made up of 2 main islands and a number of smaller islands. The 2 main islands, the North Island, or Te Ika a Maui, and the South Island, or Te Waipounamu, are separated by Cook Strait, 22 kilometers, 14 miles, wide at its narrowest point, 148, besides the North and South Islands. The 5 largest inhabited islands are Stewart Island, across the Foveaux Strait, Chatham Island, Great Barrier Island, in the Hauraki Gulf, 149, D'Urville Island, in the Marlborough Sounds, 150, and Waiheke Island, about 22 kilometers, 14 miles, from central Auckland, 100. New Zealand's climate is predominantly temperate maritime, Köppen, CFB, with mean annual temperatures ranging from 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, in the south to 16 degrees Celsius, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, in the north. 168 historical maxima and minima are 42.4 degrees Celsius, 108.32 degrees Fahrenheit, in Rangiora, Canterbury, and -25.6 degrees Celsius, -14.08 degrees Fahrenheit, in Ranfurly. Otago, 169, conditions vary sharply across regions from extremely wet on the west coast of the South Island to semi-arid in central Otago and the Mackenzie Basin of inland Canterbury, and subtropical in Northland. 171 of the 7 largest cities, Christchurch is the driest, receiving on average only 640 mm (25 in) of rain per year, and Wellington the wettest, receiving almost twice that amount. 172. Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch all receive a yearly average of more than 2,000 hours of sunshine. The southern and southwestern parts of the South Island have a cooler and cloudier climate, with around 1,400 to 1,600 hours. The northern and northeastern parts of the South Island are the sunniest areas of the country and receive about 2,400 to 2,500 hours. 173. The general snow season is early June until early October, though cold snaps can occur outside this season. 174. Snowfall is common in the eastern and southern parts of the South Island and mountain areas across the country. 168. The table below lists climate normals for the warmest and coldest months in New Zealand's 6 largest cities. North Island cities are generally warmest in February. South Island cities are warmest in January. New Zealand's transport network comprises 94,000 kilometres, 58,410 miles, of roads, including 199 kilometres, 124 miles, of motorways, 247, and 4,128 kilometres, 2,565 miles, of railway lines. 153. Most major cities and towns are linked by bus services. Although the private car is the predominant mode of transport. 248. The railways were privatized in 1993 but were re-nationalized by the government in stages between 2004 and 2008. The state-owned enterprise Kiwi Rail now operates the railways, with the exception of commuter services in Auckland and Wellington, which are operated by Transdev 249 and Metlink 250, respectively. Railways run the length of the country, although most lines now carry freight rather than passengers. 251. The road and rail networks in the 2 main islands are linked by roll-on.